One thing that I really want to cover as well in this conversation is you give people tools, not motivation. So I think you've spoke about being confused as a motivational speaker, whereas you're giving people tools. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. People see my videos or they see me doing a keynote and things like that, and they go like, "Oh, he's a motivational speaker, inspirational speaker," and I don't do motivation. I don't get on stage and go rah 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 and get everybody excited. I feel that doesn't last. You get inspired, you go home, you want to do everything the speaker told you, and you do it for about 4 or 5 days, and then all the emotion and inspiration wears away, and you default back to who you are. So it's almost like, you're just getting high for a few days of whatever you heard, and then you default back, and then you can't change. So I really don't believe in inspiring people or motivating people in that sense. I rather help people define the goal, help them, because I think that's the first place to start, is really defining the goal, then outline the steps to that goal, and then finally, step 3, sharing with them the tools that they need to stay on the path to get to the goal. I was actually in London a couple of years ago, and I held an event. A gentleman at the event asked me, he said to me, Dandapani, I do meditation in the morning and I do some breath work. I hear you talking about affirmations. Should I incorporate that into my morning routine? I asked him, well, where do you want to go? I said, if I want to build a house made out of concrete, then I'll bring brick and cement and sand and a cement mixture and shovel and trowel and whatever it is. But if I'm building a wood house, then I probably don't need cement. I might just need, planks, nails, handsaw, right? So people always look at the tools as opposed to defining the destination, and then help the destination then define what you need to get there, if that makes sense.
I love it. So it sounds like as well, just going back to the start, is you've traveled around the world quite a lot. You've moved from space to space. Where were you born? What was that like?
I was born in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, in the capital. I think I had a great childhood. It wasn't anything special to write home about. I just grew up, went to school, played with my neighbors. That's about it. And then when I was a teenager, my family migrated to, I would say the great thing about growing up in Malaysia was such a multicultural society. So I grew up with, I'm Sri Lankan of origin, and I grew up with, Indians and Sri Lankans and Chinese and Sikhs and Malay. So it's really great having that multicultural exposure. And then when I was a teenager, we migrated to Australia, and I did a bit of high school there, university. And then when I graduated from university, I moved to Hawaii, where I lived as a monk for 10 years.
So the step between university, so what was your degree in at university?
Electrical engineering.
So electrical engineering. So what was the point where you went, this is it, I'm gonna make a big change?
Look, I wanted to be a monk since I was about 4 or 5 years old. And for me at that point, I was really trying to find a teacher that could guide me. And I met many monks along the way. As a kid, my parents would take me to go see, because I'm a Hindu, and whenever a Hindu monk or Swami Guru would come to town, we'd, go see him and listen to what he had to say, or she had to say. And though they all had wonderful things to say, I just never resonated with any of them. I felt a lot of them inspired and motivated, but didn't have practical tools. So it wasn't until, after I graduated from high school, I was still looking to find a monastery I could join, and I didn't find one that really resonated with me. And I just didn't want to join any monastery and give up my whole life. I wanted to find the best. And then it wasn't until I met my guru when I was about 21 years old that I realized he was the right teacher for me. The setup, the way he taught, the way he trained his monks, his whole setup that he had was perfect for me. It doesn't mean it's perfect for everyone else. It just worked for me. So I wanted to quit my degree halfway through and join this monastery, but he made me finish my degree. And as soon as I knew I passed my last exam, I jumped on a plane and went to Hawaii.
So this is the bit that really I'd love to hear an insight into. So when you join the monastery, you strip yourself of all your belongings and your friends and family, and what's that process like? Especially as a 21-year-old, a young man, all his possessions, his friendship groups. What was that process like for you?
I was about nearly 24, around 24, when I actually joined the monastery, and it was difficult, and I knew this was where I was going to go. I knew what the requirements were because I got to know my guru. And so while I was in university, it began the process of just everything. I just knew that how the monastery was structured. You know, there's 3 meals a day. There was no snacking in between. There's, you know, it's not like you go on the internet and checking the scores and the print, seeing how your team's doing. None of that stuff, you know. So as I approached the end of my university career and knowing that I would be going to the monastery, I just started giving up things. You know, I would eat a Mars bar and go, okay, this would probably be the last Mars bar I ever eat in my life. So I'd enjoy it, and then I had one again, I'd be okay. It wasn't the end of the world. I'd get a smoothie or a cup of tea or anything else and know that, okay, I may never have this again, and that's okay. So I got to now things one thing at a time as I went through the last few years of my life in the world. So I think what people don't realize is that we build attachments to so many things in our life, simple things, you know. How many times a day does someone open the refrigerator to look inside to see what's there to snack on? You know, pick up their phone, scroll through something, or, you know, turn on the TV. We have all these things, all of that stripped away from me. And you just don't realize how much of those things are part of your life until you're put in a position where you don't have access to them.
So this is the thing for me is, what's the practical application for that, or what's the reason for stripping everything back?
So that's the thing where a lot of people don't understand, right? They realize most people think that when you're on the spiritual path, because they see monks renouncing material possessions and all that stuff, and they go like, oh, material possessions are bad. And that's kind of a common theme or understanding on the spiritual path, that if I'm spiritual, I shouldn't be wealthy. Money is the root of all evil. I shouldn't have material possessions. That's not really the reason, though, at least from the Hindu perspective, right? And the Hindu perspective of viewing it, that every material possession we have an energetic connection to it. So I have my laptop, I have a little energetic connection with that. I have my iPhone, I have a little energetic connection with that. So if I have 1,000 things, I have 1,000 pieces of energetic connection to each of those items, which means energy is flowing out of me into those 1,000 things. Now, if I reduce those 1,000 things to 100 things, now I have less energy flowing out of me. Now, if I reduce it to 10 things, now I have less energy flowing out to me, which means I have a lot more energy. At the end of the day, what the goal was of the monastic life and understanding renunciation. It's not saying that material things or relationships with people are bad. All it was focused on was the conservation of energy. The idea was to conserve and accumulate as much energy as possible, take that accumulated energy, focus that energy into specific areas of the mind to awaken higher states of consciousness. So imagine my mind as having 1 million light bulbs. If I stick a AAA battery in my spine, I might light up one of those light bulbs. If I stick a 9-volt battery in my spine, I might light up 2 or 3 of those light bulbs. But imagine if I plugged my spine into the power station that powered New York City. I could light up all these areas in my mind. So in order to light up those areas of the mind, you need sufficient amount of energy to channel it into those areas of the mind. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, right? But you can transfer energy from one thing to another. So the whole idea with renunciation is really making conscious, wise choices of where we're investing our energy, where are we hemorrhaging our energy, letting go of those things, accumulating energy, and then concentrating it to very specific areas of the mind so that we can awaken higher centers of consciousness. So that really was the purpose of this whole process.